Everybody, it's Steve Garvin with Jenn Eastwood, and we are talking about the Heart Notes anthology. Welcome to our show, Jenn.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you wrote a letter to Dear Victim, and that title by itself has me really intrigued as to what that is all about. Can you tell us about your experience there?
Previously, years ago, I found myself in a place that I was a total victim. And it's, as a strong, independent woman, it was a place I never wanted to be in. And I didn't like myself in that position. I was showing up in a way that I was not proud of. And as I worked through that, I swore I was never, ever going to again be in a position where I was a victim. I didn't want to be seen as a victim. I didn't want to see myself as a victim. The problem is that victim, even though I knew I really wasn't a victim and I had the ability to shift things, that victim part of me has consistently, well, I don't want to say consistently, but it has shown up more than once, more than just a few times. And each time it shows up, I am always trying to push it away and not listen to it and try to convince myself, nope, you're not that. This is where we're at. And as a result, it was just this constant resistance. And as I kept coming up, I was finally at a place where I was like, okay, I want to look at this. And as I started to write, and then you had reached out about contributing to this book. And I thought, at first I was like, I don't know if I can do this for this book, because it is such a personal topic that creates some shame. And so I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to. And I first started writing, and it was like, it was in that same place of, I don't want you here, go away, and just trying to push it away. And I put that aside, and I was like, second time I sat down, I'm like, okay, let's go a little deeper with this. And as I was writing, it brought up a lot of that shame, but I just convinced myself to dig deeper and to really listen to, because I've done where I've written like between my heart and my head and my body and my head. And I've done those kinds of writing. And I've realized that there's been a message between that. So I approached it this time from a place of, what's the message in this? Why does this keep coming up? And what's here for me? And as I was writing, it was really fascinating what emerged from that, because at first it was like, no, I want you to go away. I just want to close the door. You're not welcome here. But then I said, but this time I'm going to invite you in. And as I invited that part of me in, what I realized is that I was in a place when I wrote this, that it was around the holidays. I had moved from Orange County to San Diego just a few months before. So I'd retired. So I'd had a lot of loss. It was the loss of, where I lived for 3 decades. It was the loss of my career and who I was. There was a really good friend that we had a falling out. And I had all of this on top of losing my husband and coming up on the holidays. And I was in this place of, this poor me, why am I here? I shouldn't be here. And I was like, okay, I don't want to listen to this. And I kept pushing myself. So as I was writing, what started to emerge in that was that it was the thing I really needed to listen to, was to look at everything that I'd been through and to say, I've been through a lot. I've had a lot of loss. I've had a lot going on. And it was really, this victim part is really saying, you need to stop and pay attention. You need to acknowledge, you need to have some compassion. You need to see how much you've been through and how difficult, challenging it's been to get through it. And you need to stop and take care of yourself instead of pushing through. And so it was like this, all of a sudden, this victim place in me, it was almost like I'd heard it. And it's interesting, since that, I really haven't had the victim come out. It's,
wow.
It's almost like it needed to be heard and it needed to be acknowledged. And it was there to tell me, hey, slow down, pay attention. You've been through a lot. Have some compassion for yourself. Take care of yourself. And as soon as I did that, I'm finding I'm able to do that much easier now. So that when things happen, it's easier to stop and acknowledge that instead of pushing it away and not wanting to see that. And now that it's been heard, and I'm not saying it won't ever come back, because I'm sure it will, but it's been heard enough that it's not had to show up again recently.
I hear a lot more acceptance and compassion for the victim. And I also hear it's, you use the word strong, independent woman. And those two don't have to be in conflict with one another. That you can be at the same simultaneously a strong, independent woman and be a victim of of life's challenges. Losing your husband, dealing with. And I relate to saying goodbye to a career. Whether it was the happiest career of your life, or whether it was not so much, or whatever. We identify as as a strong, independent woman, or as a corporate accountant or whatever. And letting go of that, opens the door for the possibility of the victim showing. And instead of slamming that door in the victim's face and again victimizing that part of ourselves, opening that door and letting him in, and having some compassion and some, I don't know, maybe curiosity.
Yes. I think it's interesting, because I've been in this kind of place of letting go, and it's like letting go of an old way of being to embrace a new way of being. And in that middle part, it's scary, because you don't quite have, you've released and you're reaching and you don't have anything there. And so it's in my head of what strong, independent means is that I can just keep going on and do whatever I want to do. This stuff isn't getting in the way. Like, I'm not going to let this get in the way. I'm not going to let this loss. I'm going to just keep moving forward. And in reality, what it is, it's, you can be, yes, strong and independent, and you can embrace the emotion. You can embrace the loss. You can embrace all of that. And it's okay to feel that. And actually, that is what makes you strong, is doing that instead of pushing it away. So it has been a journey through this.
Yeah. And I hear that, and your tendency, and you're not alone in this, and is when you've that you push through and make things happen. That I'm going to, when we go through that transitional stage, it's the liminal stage, like walking through a doorway. We're neither inside nor outside. We're somewhere in the middle. And that's a really one uncomfortable, vulnerable place to be, but it's also a really powerful place to be. That's really where the magic happens, is in that transition space. And I'm wondering, in being both a strong, independent woman and being a victim, or vulnerable and sensitive, if that allows you to be even more fully who you are, rather than not.
It does. I think it's learning to embrace all of me, and that I think I saw, like, being raised that emotion wasn't really in the place, and then being a CPA, it's really no room for emotion. And emotion is all the stuff that I tried to shut down and not feel. And so resisting that and pushing that outside is really a lot of, because you said it, victimize. That's how I victimize myself. So I've been victimizing myself by not accepting all of me. And I think that's part of this too, is we're having this conversation in this being a victim. It's like, I feel like a victim because I'm not acknowledging all of me and who I am. And so as I'm able to embrace all of that and see all of that, I'm not victimizing myself as much. And then the victim part of me doesn't have to come out as much. It's like that part of me is being acknowledged, and I'm becoming more whole in all of me and expressing all of me and accepting all of me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So where do you go from here is the question that's coming to mind for me.
Where do I go from here? It's interesting because right now I'm really I had a coaching call the other day and they called it the river of misery. And I've been in this river of misery, which is, it's that really uncomfortable place of letting go of old and embracing new. And I'm in the process right now of embracing things that are completely outside of my comfort zone in publishing articles like this or stories like this to go out to the world, in starting to transition from, I've retired from the CPA world and now moving towards the coaching and becoming a transformational life coach. Focusing a lot around trauma is where I want to focus. And then doing a show with a partner on a series where we are going to be interviewing trauma survivors and their stories and telling their whole story from how they, what they went through and how they survived, and, how they're a hero in their own life. And so all of this is requiring me to really stretch and grow in ways that I am very uncomfortable. And I can see, as we're talking about this and how it's interesting how things work, this whole victim mentality, like I haven't been, even though I'm in this river of misery right now, and I'm willingly choosing to be in this river of misery because of the potential there is in the growth and becoming who I really am. I'm stripping things down in a way to become this. And all of these things that I'm doing are actually, it's like I'm bumping up against everything and I'm letting go as I'm bumping up against old trauma, old beliefs, old everything. And I'm stripping all of that away. That victor place in me that part of me has not been coming out in this. And it very easily could. And as I continue moving forward with this, I could see how it potentially might. But now that I've written this and I've had this insight, I know better how to handle it. I know what to do.
Yeah. I hear in what you're saying, the transition you're making and being in service to people who've been in trauma, and that both the strong independent part of you as well as the victim part of you helps you to be in that space to have empathy for those people who are victims of trauma, but also that they're, as you wade or swim or navigate the river of misery, that that there is something positive on the other side of that.
Yes. And it's I think my experience in being a victim, both a victim, because I was a victim of things, I've also victimized myself. And so a lot of people that go through trauma tend to victimize themselves. And so it does help me connect, relate. If I hadn't been through what I've been through and been a victim in many ways, that it would make it much harder for me to relate. And I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now.
Yes. Well, I honor and recognize the full Jenn Eastwood, both the strong, independent woman that you are, as well as the sufferer of various victim or trauma. You know, I think you are a remarkable person because of both of those things.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. We invite you to get your own copy of Heart Notes Anthology, because, you know, there are so many heart notes that have been shared just like Jenn's. You know, and when we both express ourselves, and there is opportunity at the end of the book to write your own heart note, but also when we read other people's heart notes and see other people's hearts, we realize that we're in this together, and together, you know, we can all be strong and independent and powerful and transformative and navigate the rivers of misery that we might find ourselves in.